So thanks a lot, everyone, and look forward to having this discussion. So I will start the discussion. I will start the introduction, this panel with the introduction of our panelists this afternoon. So we have Kakvira Kume, manager, the Rockefeller Foundation. We have Neeraj Varya, partner, Novastar Ventures. We have Azhar Rifai, head of strategy at ARC EM Partners. We have Omar Boma Mohammed, managing partner as Veritas Consulting. We have Joseph Choi, private sector partnership and innovation at World Food Program. And in addition to that, we have some very innovative SMEs that are joining us from across the region. We have Francis, founder and MD of Keep IT Cool Kenya. We have Rose Mwangi, founder and the CEO of Insectary. And then we have Sheila Olomo, founder and CEO of Eastern Agriculture Development Company from Uganda. So I will ask all my panelists to start with a quick introduction about themselves, a 1-minute introduction, so that we can get into the discussion quickly after that. So I will go as I see my panelists on my screen. So the first and the foremost, I can see Neeraj on my screen. So I will ask Neeraj to unmute and give his quick introduction.
Sure.
Welcome, Neeraj.
Thanks, Kanika. Hey all, we at Novastar Ventures, we're trying to be a fairly traditional, in a sense, venture fund. We want to find businesses that we think can fundamentally transform an entire sector across the continent, and find the businesses early. And if they make a relatively small investment, a few $100,000, let's say. And when I say early, I mean kind of pre-profit, certainly pre-revenue on occasion. And as they progress, keep investing over multiple rounds. We can invest a couple $100,000 at the beginning and up to $8 million over 3 or 4 rounds. So it's actually proud of that business. And what we're trying to do, you can deliver great commercial returns while also delivering enormous impact for the common good. So it's that nexus that we're looking for. We invest across East Africa and Anglophone West Africa. But of course, we're looking for the companies that succeed to grow well beyond those geographies over time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Neeraj. And then I have Rose. Rose, please introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Rose, also known as Rose Ann. Sometimes when you call me Rose, I sometimes don't quite get it, but it's Rose Ann. And I am the founder of the Insectary, which is a black soldier fly farm that is operating here in Kenya. We are about 1.5 years, going to 2 years old. We specialize on the larvae that is going to be fed into the monogastrics, the one-stomach animals, chicken, pigs, and fish. And we're looking forward to encouraging other people to do the same and grow the sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rose, and look forward to hearing from you what you have been doing in the field. The next I have Azhar. Kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Kanika. I'm representing Arch Emerging Markets Partners, which is a specialist that focuses on private market opportunities. And we're specifically interested in the likes of renewable energy and specifically temperature controlled storage. So I think they're the 2 main areas that we would like to talk more about today. We have a $150 million fund in renewable energy, and we have a $100 million fund that focuses specifically on temperature-controlled storage across sub-Saharan Africa.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Azhar. Kakvira.
Thank you, Kanika. It's a pleasure to be here with such creative innovators and distinguished guests. My name is Kakvira Kome. I am part of the Rockefeller Foundation, and I'm based in the Nairobi office, and looking forward to sharing with you a bit more about our work across the region.
Thank you and welcome, Kakvira. Next, we have Sheila. Sheila.
Nika, and good afternoon, everyone. Sheila Lumo is my name. I am an agri-social entrepreneur based in Uganda. We are in the business of trading and food processing, and also involved along the spectrum in as far as, enhancing production at farmer level, and also creating impact within the communities that we're working in.
Thank you, Sheila. Omar?
Good afternoon, everybody. Omar Bomba from Veritas Consulting. We are an Ethiopia-based management consultancy. We focus on policy, innovative investment models, and the broad-based economic development. Our particular interest here is in the nexus of energy, agriculture, and water. We've been working for the past several years on commercially viable models that can be scaled up, specifically for mini grids across several partners, and we're pipelining a series of commercial mini grids in partnership with the Ministry of Water, Irrigation, Energy, and the Rockefeller Foundation.
Thank you and welcome, Omar. And then next we have Joseph.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Karnika. We're off to a good start. It seems like I can partner with everyone that's just introduced themselves, but thank you so much. I've been with the World Food Program for a number of years now. I just arrived in Nairobi at the end of last year to take up my new role, and that is to engage with stakeholders from the private sector, SMEs, innovators, and trying to really push our value chain projects further. And I look forward to having a more broader and detailed discussion with everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Joseph. And last but not the least, we have Francis.
Hello, everyone. I am seeing some familiar faces, and pleasure to meet you and to see you again. My name is Francis, and I'm the founder of Keep It Cool. We are basically trying to make sure that cold chain is accessible to everyone, to restaurants, to butcheries, and so we have this platform and innovative business model where we are making it refrigeration as a service accessible to all the small-scale traders and producers across the fish value chain. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Francis. And thanks a lot, everyone on the panel. And thanks a lot, everyone on the session who have joined this session as well to listen to the panelists and to contribute to the discussion. So in this particular session, in the next 90 minutes, what we seek to do is to gather insights from the panelists and as well as the participants on some of the opportunities, existing initiatives, as well as the solutions that exist to enhance access to the nutritious food, and also to showcase some of the innovators addressing some of these challenges. We will also like to explore the necessary institutional and the ecosystem partnership and the policy recommendations through this 90-minute panel discussion that we are hosting now. So the first and the foremost, I would like to start with a small video from Francis, where Francis will show about the work that he has been doing in the nutritious food space and how his business has been contributing to enhancing the access to nutritious food in the region. Rachel?
Keep It Cool is a smart distribution company leveraging on technology and also decentralized cold chain. So we basically provide cooling as a service to fish value chain players and stakeholders in order to reduce post-harvest losses in the value chain. Our main aim at Keep It Cool is connecting supply chain, the whole supply chain, mainly mapping demand and supplying that demand with the fish from African supply chain. So on a day-to-day basis, we take orders from our agents. We have over 67 agents who take fish from us, and the next day we distribute the fish to them before midday. And we do this using our temperature-controlled facilities and technologies. And this smart distribution provides transparency and traceability of the fish back to the farms, which are mainly, in Kenya, African farms here. The fishing community, as you know, has been facing a lot of challenges because of cheap imports of fish. And what we're trying to do is to give them a chance to take on the market and by providing them a marketplace, a virtual marketplace through a B2B e-commerce platform. And we are also providing them with capability to store, that is the cold chain and the cold storages. And in addition to that, we have youths who are working in our distribution in the last mile, specifically the motorbike riders, and also we have employed 2 drivers as well to do our last mile logistics as well. In addition to that, we are working to get more distribution centers in Nairobi and more processing areas in Homa Bay, creating employment on both sides of the value chain, which we intentionally want to put more women in, because women have not been involved in the fish value chain. It is mainly dominated by men because fishermen are men. Now we want to involve a lot of women in the processing area. At the moment, we only have one aggregation center. We want to put more aggregation centers across the lake. We're in the southern part of the lake, in South Nyanza, in Homa Bay. We want to go up north in Busia, in Bondo and Usenge, and collect more fish from those areas. And also in terms of market access, we want to be able to service other markets, not just Nairobi Central. We want to be in Thika, in Juja, in Ngong, in Rongai, and open distribution centers across these satellite cities, satellite towns around Nairobi metropolitan area. And in addition to that, we also want to improve the technology and improve on traceability so that fish from Kenyan markets are not confused from fish imports, and therefore we'll have better leverage to sell buy Kenya, build Kenya in the fish supply chain.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Francis. It seems like you have been doing a great work to make access to the fishes, the local fishes, which is one of the great food in terms of the nutrition that it provides to the people. So it's great to know what you have been doing. So we would like to understand more about what kind of growth do you envision in the coming years, and what support is needed from the ecosystem to achieve that growth. Yeah. So my first question, Francis, is that what sort of growth do you envision in the coming years? And my second question is that what support do you need from the ecosystem for your growth?
So just to give you a bit of background, so when we started this company, we are 1 year, 6 months old company, and so far we have been able to support, when we were shooting that video, it was in January last year, and so far we have continued to grow. In the last 10 months or so, we have grown from having 67 agents. Right now we have about 280 agents, and we went from moving 200 kgs of fish. Right now we're doing about 4 tons of fish per week. So that's the journey that you have gone through. We are supporting over 2,000 fishermen at the moment, and recently we have been able to get support from the ecosystem, coming from different stakeholders, both commercial and non-commercial, and in-kind sort of support. And looking forward in the short term, our short-term growth strategy obviously is to get more agents on board. All this traction we have had in the last few months, we didn't have a sales team, so we are leveraging on social media, because we are in contactless phase of the year because of COVID-related challenges. So right now we have a sales team on the ground, and we are looking to grow this offtake exponentially. Right now, we have received a lot of support from various stakeholders, including GAIN, the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, who we are closely working with to improve access and distribution of fish in low-income areas in Umoja and Eastlands in general, Kibera and other areas. And recently we also received support from Shell Foundation to bring more cooling boxes to these areas in Nairobi, and that will be we are looking to, start utilizing these assets, scaling assets soon. So that's in terms of the support that you have received, and in terms of the, the short, medium sort of strategy that we have in terms of growth. We have over 5,000 stakeholders that we have mapped so far, and we are actively engaging. We have over 321 fish landing sites who we have signed on our platform. And we are supporting over 5 fish cooperatives. And yeah, so things are looking favorably good if the market allows. But obviously there are other challenges that you're facing, and the support that we need, obviously, including access to various market information. Access to data is still an issue, because most of the data in these sort of subsectors like fisheries and aquaculture is very fragmented, some coming from the government, some coming from the private sector. And that's one area that I would say we really need support. There is no access to data sets from various players. I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we have faced and has been a hindrance to our growth. The other aspect is obviously consumer data, the preferences of consumer. It has not, again, been aggregated. So for example, if you ask me what is mainly consumed, I'll only inform you based on the data that we have internally. So those are mainly the issue of data sets, and secondly, the issue of access to capital. So obviously capital is directly related to growth, and because you have to incur certain losses and profits when you're testing out models, and therefore not many people are patient or willing to risk at this particular stage of where we are at the moment. But luckily we have had these sort of grants coming in, and that has been very, very helpful. And so, I'm talking on behalf of the other people who may not have that privilege to have access to these networks, international networks, and therefore they need that support as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Francis. It's definitely great to hear what you have been doing. And I hope there are the investors, the donors, and the grant providers, and the commercial finance provider also in this discussion that can assist you in growing and scaling your business, so that more and more nutritious food can be made accessible to the people, to even the low income population that you may be targeting. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Francis. So moving on, now I will like to open the discussion to our esteemed panelists. And the first and the foremost question that I will like to ask panelists is that given their experience in the nutritious and the protective food value chain and the wider agriculture value chain, what are some of the areas where innovations can play a key role? What are some examples of the innovations that they have encountered in their work that they have been doing so far? So I will open this question and I will start with Azhar.
Hi there. Thanks, Kanika. I mean, look, we're focused on temperature controlled storage and cold chain. We're building 8 to 10 temperature controlled facilities across East Africa. And it's all about cold chain. It's about storage and logistics. So when you talk about innovation, we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is something that exists globally. It's a huge industry, and unfortunately, cold chain is something that's severely lacking here in East Africa and some other parts of Africa. I think talking more innovative about maybe what doesn't exist so much in the developed world, we're focusing a lot on agricultural products as well as the blue economy. I think part of our problem has been it's all well and good building these very large temperature control facilities and having temperature controlled trucks that can operate in a city as well as long haul. But how do we actually get to the first mile? And how do we actually aggregate those products and get them to our facilities, essentially? And I think this is somewhere where emerging markets has probably thought more outside the box. And you're starting to see a lot of businesses that are looking at off-grid cold chain solutions, which doesn't really exist in sort of more developed markets. And that's, you know, around what we've seen are almost these 20, 40 foot temperature controlled containers, which can be plugged into the grid, but you know, are designed so that they're solar powered. These containers are pretty well manufactured. You can reach temperatures as low as 0 degrees. They have temperature control, they have humidity control, but they also have technology involved in them as well. You know, through applications and tech, you can see how many times the containers have been opened. You can see what temperatures they're at. You can see what products are being managed by them. And we, you know, although we're operating on a larger scale, we definitely see that as one solution and an innovative solution at enabling our business. And it's something we're definitely looking at investing more time and capital in to whoever is really operating in that space. And I know there is a number of esteemed colleagues here that have interest in that space, and you know, we'd love to talk to them more about investment opportunities that we can support in.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Azhar. Yeah, definitely that's a sort of an innovation which is needed in the market, in the region. Every year, over 30 to 40% of the produce is actually lost in the post-harvest because of the post-harvest losses, and primarily because the farmers don't have access to any of these cold chain facilities. So definitely there is a lot more need in the region to develop these cold storage solutions. And maybe just to add to what you said, Azhar, is also is having the 3PL solutions, which are able to provide the last mile connectivity so that the farmers, even the smallholder farmers, have access to these solutions, and not only the middle or the large scale farmers have access to these cold storage solutions, because again, the post-harvest losses occur majorly at the farm level also. Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot, Azhar. Omar, what are some of the innovations that you have been seeing in your work that you would like to share with the participants and the panelists today?
Okay, thanks for having me again. So from our innovations, I would say it's more the business models that we're bringing forward. So to the best of our knowledge, when you're looking at horticulture or nutritious foods, and you're looking at the smallholder farmer environment, there have been efforts to provide energy, because without irrigation, they really can't move the needle forward. In the context of Ethiopia, what we did, we approached it from an energy platform. And we basically looked at it and said, not sure that the kinds of subsidies that mini-grid companies are getting around the continent are going to be feasible in Ethiopia, and the economics of standalone systems don't make as much sense. So we identified a series of really large loads where smallholder farmers are already producing massive irrigation outputs, but using diesel generators. So it's a transition story. So we are trying to aggregate that investment in kind of mini grids to get anywhere from 100 to 400 hectares that are already being irrigated, and potential surrounding areas there about 20-30%. So the conversations that just happened about cold chain become the secondary conversation. So the first part, really bringing the energy loads in and making this feasible, is the farming and irrigation. The second part, small scale processing, absolutely on the side of storage, because right now farmers are losing 20 to 30%, but it's not just that. They don't have any kind of pricing power, because you are getting the middlemen coming into the market, and basically they have to sell within 48, 72, 96 hours, depending on this kind of challenge. So when you bring in this conversation forward now, you're also now talking about energy, You're talking about agriculture, you're talking smallholder farmers, you're talking about vulnerable rural communities. So the stakeholders begin to play a big part. On the government side, on the energy and agriculture side, you really do have to bring a lot of people together, make sure everybody's aligned. Ethiopia has no history of private mini-grid investment, so it's really piloting, learning those lessons, the right lessons from it, bringing in the big scale of partners and kind of building those business rules around it, right? The business and, if you want to call it, the investment rules for government. So those are the big learnings we've had. And if you take one big takeaway from this is you do need to bring in different kinds of partners. It's not just energy, it's not just agriculture. And if you don't align them appropriately, it's going to be very hard to take off.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Omar. Definitely collaboration is needed across the value chain. And as you rightly said, it is the nexus of the energy, the water, which will ultimately result in the food security or the access to the enhanced access to the nutritious food in the region. So thank you. Thanks a lot, Omar, for your viewpoints and opinions on that. Kagwera, moving on to you, what are some of the innovations that you have seen in the nutritious and the protective food value chains, and giving some examples of those?
Thank you, Kanika. So maybe let me start with a definition of protective foods from Rockefeller. So protective foods are the fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grain nuts, and seeds, and fish. Essentially, they're the foods your grandparents insisted that we eat. We describe them as protective because they have a demonstrative protective effect against non-communicable disease. So for the foundation, the key area of interest is ensuring the access and the affordability of protective foods for vulnerable communities. Current data shows that we're not eating enough of the protective foods. So for example, in Tanzania, fruits and vegetable consumption is 7% of the daily diet. In Kenya, it's 10%. In Rwanda, it's slightly higher at 20%, but this is below the target of 30%. In addition to the underconsumption of protective foods, we're also seeing like shifts in urban markets with food environments transitioning to mirror those in high-income economies, with increased processed foods that are with high levels of sugar, sodium, and also saturated fats. Processed foods tend to be cheaper and more convenient than healthier options, and the sales are growing faster in lower middle income countries than upper middle and high income countries. So for us, we want to bend the curve to ensure that protective foods are available in the market. And some of the innovations that we have identified that can increase the access and affordability are innovative partnerships for production. So we have seen examples of producers organizing farmers so that they can support them to sustainably produce for them while connecting to markets. We've seen models of farm management services with co-ownership models for fresh produce, and also advancements in sustainable aquaculture for fish farming. We've also seen process innovation, and I think the best example is one here that Francis has presented on how he's transforming distribution and logistics. But there are also others where retailers are trying to reduce the chain by sourcing directly from the farmers, and that reduces the cost of these protective foods. We've also seen new business models, leasing models for cold storage, but also affordable transport solutions that reduce waste from transit and farm to market. And then also new products. SMEs are developing more nutritious foods. One of the interesting products I came across is a fortified porridge that's served in school meals, which is great for the nutrition. But the fortification is actually pawpaw extracts, and that reduces the risk of infection for intestinal wounds. And then finally, we've also seen SMEs who are targeting low-income segments with affordable serving sizes, and then also a presentation that makes these products attractive. Over to you, Kanika.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kavera. And definitely there are a lot of innovations happening in the region for enhancing the access to the nutritious food. And I guess since these innovations are happening, what need to be done now in the region, in the space, is to assess these innovations to scale, because then only the prices will come down and more people will start consuming the nutritious food versus the cheaply available processed food. So the demand will increase only when the supply is increased, and the supply could be increased when these innovations are scaling. Okay. Thank you, Kagvera. So moving on to our next panelist, Neeraj. So I assume you may not have or may have worked directly with the businesses in the nutritious food space, but you have been investing a lot in the agriculture sector. So what are some of the innovations that you are seeing in the agriculture sector and that you believe could directly or indirectly assist in enhancing the access to nutritious food in the East African region?
Yeah, thanks, Kanika. We have indeed made a handful of investments in agriculture. And what we've seen consistently is the problem is across the entire value chain. So while a lot of companies come to us and they have a great solution for one specific aspect, it could be a more nutritious porridge, for example, they hit a ceiling when they struggle with either sourcing or marketing, or it's not somewhere along the value chain something breaks down. And Francis is working on trying to address the entire value chain, not in terms of the production, the fishing, but everything from fishing. Francis, from memory, everything from fishing to the butchery, they look after. And so the businesses the innovations that we're seeing, either trying to address the entire value chain, or in some cases try somehow to bypass it. And I'll talk about that in a second. The other thing that we see consistently is, in order to either serve or source from the mass market, which is essentially what you have to do to have the impact that we're all looking for, you need technology through the guts of the entire business, because you're typically either sourcing very small amounts or selling very small amounts, and your margin on each of those small amounts is very low. And so to make the economics work, you've got to have technology and data and software built through the system. So, we've got, for example, by trying to solve the entire value chain, we've invested in a company called iProcure, which is trying to solve the inputs side of the problem. So basically, it's sourcing everything from manufacturers and solving the entire inputs value chain all the way through to the retailers who the farmers are already buying for it, and using everything from point of sale systems and data analytics and warehousing systems and so on, to try and bypass an entire problem area. They've got Green Path in Ethiopia, which essentially it recognizes that access to fertilizers and so on is very difficult. And so it's using a combination of permaculture and organic farming to get production yields and quality and volumes up. So kind of skipping past the lack of inputs there. We have, not in our portfolio, but there's another one kind of in terms of disintermediation in the entire chain. There's a company called Zaidi, which is essentially trying to source milk directly from farmers and do everything all the way through to the milk dispensing machines in slums. And so you're basically solving the entire chain, and therefore they are, from memory, I can't remember the exact numbers, but they're taking something like 40% off the cost of milk to the consumer by doing that. So those are just a handful of examples of companies that are trying to solve the entire value chain or bypass it, and all of those need have technology through the guts of the business.
Thank you. Thanks, Neeraj. Very well. There are so many bottlenecks or gaps across the value chain. So the companies have to focus, either collaborate with the other companies and develop solutions, or either develop solutions in-house to break these bottlenecks, to break these gaps that exist across the value chain. And technology definitely can play a very, very critical role. Technology has been playing a very critical role in the region, in other sectors like financial inclusion, healthcare, and similarly, it can definitely play a key role in the agriculture and nutritious food space as well. Moving on, so the last panelist for this particular question, Joseph, your views on this, the innovations that you have seen in your work.
Yeah, thank you, Karnika. It's interesting because certain areas are addressed by our panelists, like cold chain, finance, grid, energy. And I think for us, the difficulty and complexity is, as Neeraj has said, is throughout the whole value chain. We've gone from a pretty simple concept of just delivering food into a whole new domain of systems, a food systems area where we are trying to address, from lack of a better term, I guess, from farm to fork in many respects, starting from the smallholder farmers. So trying to plug those gaps, and to be honest, we are not experts in the value chain in many respects. We need partnerships. We need companies and stakeholders who can help us address these issues. So I think that's a complexity that we are moving forward within the innovation space. I guess I'll give you just a couple of concrete examples, and one of them is I was just on a procurement a team meeting the other day, and we are in the midst of rolling out food ATMs. And we face multiple challenges when serving beneficiaries, and really those discrepancies between the entitlements, and then you have hygienic concerns. We have given cash and vouchers and so forth in the past, but using the idea of ATMs and biometrics, we are going to be utilizing these food ATMs that are going to dispense food instead of money, and hopefully boost the beneficiary experience for them to access the food and reduce the health risks. So these are going to be set up in Kenya and in Uganda. And I think another area that we've had quite a difficult time in addressing is there's this, a lot of the commodities we procure, we have to make sure it's safe for consumption. And as part of that issue, for many, many years now, there's this carcinogen called aflatoxin that has always been really a thorn in our side when procuring, and when the maize is heavily affected by this carcinogen. So we are partnering with a company called Aflasite, and it really is combining cutting edge machine technology with strategic market operations, and just trying to provide a more larger scale cleaning of the maize affected by the aflatoxin. So those are two concrete examples that within the value chain we are trying to address, and there are also many, many gaps going forward. So I'm looking forward to hearing others in the conversation. Thank you, Karnika.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Joseph. So please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. We have the panelists here. You can ask questions to any of them. Please put your questions in the chat, and we will take them. We will take some questions in the middle of the discussion, and then we will take some questions at the end of the discussion as well. But feel free to write or post any questions that you may have to the panelists, or any comments that you would like to put on the feedback that panelists have provided. So moving on, we will now like to showcase the work of another great SME that is working in the using the feed, insect feed, and she'll be showing a small video of her work and what she's been doing. I personally found it very, very interesting. And let's have a look at what Roseanne, as she said, it's not just Rose, but Roseanne. Let's see what Roseanne has been doing.
Hi there, my name is Roseanne. I am of the Insectary Kenya, a black soldier fly farm operating in Murang'a. We grow black soldier fly larvae for animal feeds, particularly for chicken, fish, and pigs. The end product of our process is organic manure, also known as frass, which is very healthy for soil amendments and plant generation. The black soldier fly will contribute definitely to beneficial food for the population within our country. We are talking of healthier chicken being produced at a faster rate with much lower cost than is ordinary. The pigs that feed on the black soldier fly larvae are also amazing. And so this provides protein sources that are healthy and that are affordable because the cost of production has also been brought down. When it comes to the frass, it works wonders on the soils. The plants that have been grown using the black soldier fly frass are vibrant, they are healthy, and they are beneficial for us. We are looking at ensuring that there is responsible consumption and production in all our facilities and ensuring that waste is no longer regarded as waste, but as a valuable resource that will help in the general economy of our country. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Roseanne. That's very interesting, that how you are using black soldier fly to develop an organic feed for the chickens and the pigs, and ultimately how these chicken and pigs consumed by the humans are more and more organic and not feeding on the artificial products that usually has become a trend in the market these days. So that's very interesting. So similar to what the question I posed to Francis, I also would like to hear from you. What's your plans for the next 3 to 5 years? How do you see your company growing, and what is the support that you need from the ecosystem to grow your company?
Yes, thank you, Karnika. And sorry for that glitch. But the business, the insects started a year and a half ago. And we started in order to solve the question of processing waste that was being generated by local processors. And they were looking at a way of disposal of that waste that also brings about some bit of value. So we are looking for, we got into the issue of animal feed as a way of disposing processing waste. There was also the issue of biogas. And then recently, with support from Rockefeller and ISIPE, we came upon the growing of black soldier fly larvae as a way of adding value to the element of animal feed. So that became a double benefit. And so we took onto it and we have grown it on as a business. The market, some of the market gaps that the business is looking at is availability of protein for feed. Protein by itself is a rare and scarce commodity. A lot of times we find that the protein that is available for feed is also being, there is a competition for it from humans as well. You know, fish meal for feed as well as fish for beginning, provide that distinction so that then the fish can go to human consumption and we can produce a lot of black soldier fly that can hopefully address the protein needs that are in the industry. The process of growing black soldier fly also has its own benefit of the frass, the fertilizer that we were talking about. And what is happening is that that fertilizer is a very good soil amendment. It's a very good soil amendment. And the soil amendment works to grow the crops much better and they become much more healthier and you do not need very many additives. Yes, so what kind of growth are we looking at, and where do we hope to go in the coming years? Black soldier fly rearing is a novel space, and we are looking at scaling up. We have tested a few models of scaling up and seen that in addition to growing our own facility and our farm, it's important to have other farmers also take up the technology. And so training of other farmers.
What we could learn or hear from what Rose's company has been doing is definitely very, very transformational, particularly from the perspective that it is, as what Neeraj also alluded, it is working across the value chain and making an impact at the various components of the value chain, and then not just working towards the end. So it is working at the feed level, it is working at providing organic fertilizers using the black soldier fly to the farmers, and then ultimately it's also creating an impact in creating more nutritious and healthy meat products that human beings are consuming. So definitely great stuff that Rose is doing, and we'll get back to her once her internet connection is better. But meanwhile, I will like to again come back to Neeraj and have a follow-on question to what he alluded to earlier, and get his viewpoints on the scalability of the businesses and the scalability of the innovations. So my question to you, Neeraj, is that give some examples of the agri companies that you have invested in, and what led you to invest into those companies? What makes a business investment ready in your view? And maybe you can give us some counter examples also, that's without naming names, that some of the companies that you didn't invest in, and why didn't you invest into those companies? Because we are looking at how do we, while we have so many innovations in the region, how do we scale those businesses? And access to finance and access to credit is one of the most highlighted challenge for the businesses.
Sure. A little bit of context before I answer. I'm going to be speaking almost exclusively about the types of businesses that we look for, which have the potential to get to continental scale, right? And there are plenty of businesses which will be very, very good businesses, investable, but they don't meet that sort of ambition target. So we'll kind of, so if I can focus on that, the simple answer to that question, Kanika, is it's all about the team. I'm trying to remember who it was. I think Comer maybe said that these are not problems that are brand new. We're often taking solutions from elsewhere, adapting them. There'll be a little bit of technical innovation, but almost everything, including insectary, right? Black soldier fly, animal protein being pioneered in China, South Africa, well before it got here. What makes for a standout investment opportunity is a team that we believe can really take that innovation or that borrowed technology and take it to scale. And what that requires is, it's very difficult to build a giant business in these regions, right? You've got to do almost the entire value chain. The entire world is against you. You can't raise capital. Policies often work against you because you're way beyond the bleeding edge of what government is familiar with. And so we look for teams who are robust enough to get up every time they get knocked down, are humble enough to recognize that they're not going to know all the answers. They're going to go out and look for answers from elsewhere. And when the market tells them they're wrong, they'll learn from it. They don't doggedly press on. There are certain types of teams who work really well, complementary. You know, I mentioned the need for technology, so we generally look for at least one really strong technology lead, one really strong operations lead, and ideally, if possible, somebody who really understands finance. So a well-balanced team is absolutely critical. And then, we look for teams who are able to attract results, right? And And this is it's a slightly sad thing to say, but there are two types of value in my experience. There's the intrinsic value, as I think of it, the operational, you can get stuff down on the ground and make a business operationally work. And there's the perceived value, which is the world looks at a business and says, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me put some money into it, or let me go and work there. And you need both, because if you're too, if the team is too focused on staying on the ground and hidden, they may build a very good business, but they'll struggle to raise the capital and attract the resources, the talent, the partnerships, etc., that really drive it to scale. So looking for a team who can deliver both. And there is, of course, built into that, you've got to have, a large market potential and scalable operations and so on. But the market size is there for what we're talking about. And scalable operations is all about the team. Sorry, so I didn't talk about any specific teams that we did not invest in because we didn't think they were worth investing in, but I felt that would be unfair.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Neeraj. Yeah, definitely a very, very valid point that it all comes to the team, it's all come to the entrepreneur and his colleagues, that they are able to learn, they are agile, and they are nimble enough to adapt and hear to what the market, what the customers, what the suppliers are saying, and evolve their business model and not just be fixated on what they started with. And that in a way is also an innovation, because innovation is not just about the product. Innovation is about innovating your business, innovating your processes, innovating your team. So the innovation has to be looked in a more holistic way, and not just the innovation of the product or the service that you're offering or bringing to the region or the ground. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Neeraj, for those valuable insights and views there. So next I would like to ask Azhar, and Azhar has already touched a bit upon the recently launched fund that the Arch Fund has launched in East Africa, which is focused on cold chain solutions. So what kind of funding opportunities are you envisioning in the region, and what are the challenges have you encountered so far? Azhar, this is my question to you.
Sure, thank you. I think if we're looking at funding opportunities other than our direct investment, we sort of see a lot of indirect opportunities through what we're doing. I know cold chain is one element of the supply chain that's being discussed today, but maybe if I can go into one specific product briefly. And just follow that one through, and some of the opportunities we've seen around that. I think it was perhaps Omar that had mentioned it earlier on. If you take, for instance, potatoes in Kenya, there's 2 harvest seasons around potatoes. And what we've seen is a lot of fluctuation in the price of that product through the 2 seasons. And we've noticed that, especially from the smallholder farmers' point of view, or even the larger, more organized, they are in a tough spot where, the brokers understand that if that product is not taken away from the land, it's open spoilage. So they've got the farmers in a bit of a tight spot. If the farmers had more access to temperature-controlled storage, then they're able to stabilize that price point. One of the things I think is important to know for the people on the call today, if you look at a potato, an uncooked potato, it can last anywhere from 1 week to 2 months without any temperature-controlled storage. With the right kind of seed, you can store that potato for anywhere up to 9 months in a temperature-controlled facility. And that's how we believe that can actually stabilize the market, especially from the farmer point of view, giving them higher yield on their products. But I think the second part, which gets us very more exciting, is the food manufacturing angle. And you find that with temperature control, storage and logistics, you have a lot more food manufacturing opportunities around that. And we've been speaking to a business here, One Stop, that manufacture crisps amongst other products. And the lady from that business just simply explained to me, you know, it's very difficult in terms of her cash flow because of the peak and off-peak potato prices and the demand for it. And she's basically said to us, look, if there's an opportunity for her to store the potatoes for a longer period of time, she can stabilize her cash flow and and increase her yield. So we, and I'm probably not saying anything that's new to the panelists. I'm sure they're all echoing the same thing. So we see a lot of opportunity around what we're investing in and to enable a lot of other businesses around us. I think your second point was around the challenges that we've encountered so far. I mean, we've just bought 6 acres of land up at Tattoo City, which is a special economic zone. We've actually broken ground. We're building an 18,000 square meter temperature control facility there. And I think what's been challenging up to now has actually been from the design point of view. Whilst cold chain is something that's needed here, if you have a look at the stats here, I think you've got something like over a million pallets of storage in South Africa. If you look at East Africa, I think there's something like 40 to 60,000 pallets of cold storage here. And it's integrated, and the quality of it is not so good. So what we see is the main challenge around this is from importing materials in to build a facility of this kind. That's a very challenging aspect of trying to get certain materials into the country. And we've looked a lot from local government sorts. It's also licensing. I mean, we're not just focusing on Kenya. We're focusing on all the other East African countries as well, and each has its own nuances, especially Ethiopia, which we've done a lot of lobbying over the last year in order to get the Ethiopian Investment Commission to recognize the importance of cold chain and foreign investment into these countries. But I think in terms of, we have the capital that we wish to deploy. We have the technical expertise under our roof. It's just about trying to deploy that capital quickly to design and build these temperature controlled facilities across East Africa. So I think that's some of the challenges we've faced so far.
Okay, thanks, Azhar. And just a follow-on question there, Azhar, like, since you mentioned that you've been working, your focus is across the region and not just in Kenya. Do you see any similarities or differences across different countries, even in terms of the cold storage capacity currently available in the countries? And maybe even in terms of, as you said, in terms of the products, technology that is needed to develop these cold chain storage facilities, are there differences or similarities across the countries?
I mean, there is some. I mean, temperature control facilities, it's essentially just a big fridge freezer, if you like. So, you know, it's not too complicated in that sense. And every country has its own different types of markets. You know, certainly the facility that we've built in Tattoo City is designed to look at many different sectors. So for instance, in that facility, we have 16 different chambers, which all go from plus 25 degrees down to minus 60 if we need to, catering for lots of different products. And I think we've had to be quite flexible because cold chain is still something that is developing here. And I think that is happening at different stages in different countries. For instance, Mombasa, where we're just about to acquire land and focus on the blue economy, that facility will be designed more seafood and that sort of products, fish processing and what have you. Rwanda would be obviously a little bit of a smaller facility, but especially based around the agriculture. And I think the common theme around all the countries is definitely around the agricultural space. And yeah, I think.
Thanks a lot, Azza. Kagbere, this morning we heard from Mehrdad about the various initiatives that the foundation has to support the SMEs, and as well as the initiative on the Powering Agriculture and Protective Food SME Innovation Accelerator. So we would like to hear more from you. What is the investment thesis of the foundation in the region and in the continent for working with the SMEs?
Thank you, Kanika. SMEs, as you know, have a critical role in our economies. And I think Roseanne and Francis were just excellent examples of showing how if you work with such SMEs, you're able to create a vibrant economy. But then you're also able to meet the consumers' nutritional needs. However, they struggle to attract financing because they have modest needs, limited collateral. And also sometimes they're trading in new waters and the growth prospects are uncertain. And innovation is sometimes dampened by the lack of funding for protective foods. And what we have seen is that government and private sector investment is primarily directed towards staple and export crops. So we see our role as filling the funding gap that requires different funding mechanisms. So a combination of grant and also working with other partners for the commercial funding. So for RF, our interest is to support financial mechanisms that are supporting the growth of local SMEs, that are addressing the issue of availability, equitable access, and affordability of protective foods, and specifically for vulnerable populations. For the financial mechanisms that we intend to support, it's both facilitating technical assistance, but also business development services alongside financial investments. And why this is important for us, I think some of the outcomes that we're looking for, scale is important, as Niraj mentioned, but for us, it's also that improving the well-being of humanity and the social impact metrics. We want to see a vibrant local economy. We want to test and see if we are investing in these areas, do protective and nutritious foods become more available? And even in the long run, are they able to become more affordable? We have done some research and it shows that from an economics perspective, there are few investment themes that are more compelling than improving nutrition, which for every dollar spent, you're at least able to deliver on $16 in social returns. In addition to that, we also have, away from the thesis, we also have investments we've gained, supporting the first fund that they're doing for nutritious foods, currently in the fundraising stage, and hoping to launch sometime in 2022.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Kagwera. That looks like a lot of things that the foundation is doing to support the SMEs. Thanks a lot. So now moving on to hearing from one of the SME, another SME that we have today joining us, Sheila Alumu. So we'll hear from her what she has been doing.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sheila Alumu is my name. I'm from Uganda. I am CEO and founder Eastern Agriculture Development Company Limited, an agribusiness social enterprise working with over 2,000 smallholder farmers in the fat-rich areas of Uganda, Karamoja region being among those. We're a nutrition-centric company, and we're in the business of trading and processing biofortified nutrient-rich foods, rich in vitamin A, iron, and zinc. And this is because these are the predominant nutritional deficiencies that affect us as a people. We are also in the business of transforming livelihoods and the agri-ecosystem from a systems change point of view. So basically, the core of our business is focused on addressing two major problems, that being malnutrition and environmental related or associated challenges. Malnutrition, especially deficiencies of vitamin A, iron, and zinc, which is predominant in Uganda and sub-Saharan Africa, is an impediment to growth and development and one of the leading causes of death and disease, affecting especially persons within the BOP spectrum. It's also one of the leading contributors to poverty due to its compounded effects. Our consumption habits of foods like beans that traditionally take 2 to 3 hours to cook and is consumed by over 90% of households and institutions is actually harming the environment and causing an unprecedented rate in natural forest depletion and adverse effects in changes in weather patterns, and which is affecting production. And this is due to over-reliance on natural resources like charcoal and firewood in meal preparation. If you're from Africa or Uganda, I believe you can relate. Our solution is multidimensional with a multi-stakeholder approach, but basically in addressing malnutrition, we are making biofortified, nutrient-rich composite flours enriched with vitamin A, sweet potatoes, the iron-rich beans, iron and zinc-rich beans, carbohydrates, proteins, available to especially the BOP market segments. At farmer level, we are promoting primary production of these nutrient-rich foods for production, incomes, and consumption. In regards to addressing the environmental challenges or concerns, our innovative pre-cooked bean product, pre-cooked dehydrated bean product, that cooks in less than 20 minutes as opposed to the traditional 2 to 3 hours, plays a very, very big role in saving the amount of fuel used in meal preparation by over 80%, 85%, and also contributes to reducing the time in meal preparation by 20 minutes. So generally, this solution or impact our solution offers plays a big role in enhancing and improving nutrition through our biofortified composite flours. It also contributes to savings or preserving the environment through savings of up to 85% in fuel used in meal preparation and reduction in time in meal preparation from 2 to 2 hours to 20 minutes. So by and large, in a nutshell, our aspiration as a business, is to nourish people's lives by offering a wide variety of nutrient-rich, convenient, high quality and affordable food choices that cater to everyone's food needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sheila, for letting us know what you are doing in your business. And the same question I'd like to also pose is that what is the support that you need, and where do you see your business in the next 3 to 5 years? Since we are running late on time, I'll just ask you to touch upon it in the next 1 minute or so. Sheila, over to you.
In a nutshell, our solutions as a business cross around the entire agricultural spectrum, right from production, which is geared at production of raw material that translates to our finished products. And there is one critical point that, as I mentioned, as I was listening, which is the cooling systems, because as a business, like I said, we're in the business of trading and processing. And one of our biggest products is the fresh sweet potatoes. We do have an export market of 48 metric tons monthly. Unfortunately, there is a lot of food wastage along the value chain, and we are losing market opportunities because we're not able to store the products. And when we're off season, obviously, we're off or out of business. So basically, some of the growth opportunities that we see is in addressing production at farmer level, which is geared at increasing production of both the iron-rich beans, which definitely we translated into the dehydrated pre-cooked beans that we're processing, and also part is processed into biofortified composite flours. And currently we are in a growth or scale-out phase right now, and we are heavily involved in infrastructural development, capital fundraising, and we're looking at our goal of mid-term and long-term goals is to be able to process between 400 to 600 metric tons of both the composite biofortified flours and the pre-cooked beans. And definitely in order to achieve that, it's very critical that we have a very firm base of production at farmer level. We do have, a very good infrastructure development to be able to achieve that. And also, most importantly, market strategies and linkages, so our products can be able to reach the intended market. And to WFP, in fact, I am in talks with your country office here. I do really hope that our pre-cooked, bean products can be able to get into your mainstream markets, especially the school feeding programs and the refugee, settlement camps, so that, we are able to together definitely contribute to, saving the environment and creating the change that we wish to see. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sheila. Thanks a lot, and all the best for your business. Okay, so I would like to open the chat for some Q&A, but before that, would like to have one sort of a closing remarks from all the panelists. And in this closing remarks, I would like the panelists to touch upon the partnership, the ecosystem level partnership. So basically, we all know that the eco-level system partnerships are crucial in growing the nutritious food agriculture sector and boosting access to the nutritious food to the low-income population. So from all the panelists, we would like to hear that some of the partnerships that you have established or are looking to establish at an institutional level, and the value that you have been able to derive or you would like to derive from those partnerships. So I will start with Joseph.
Great, thank you, Karnika and Sheila. That was a good last sentence plug on your part. I had no idea, but let's see how it goes then. Thank you for that. I guess Sheila's overview of her product and her business is a good example of the direction we're trying to take. I think a bigger and present day example, and I know Rockefeller Foundation is on this meeting today, but I think for us, we've been in the food systems or the food ecosystem for close to 60 years now, and as I mentioned earlier, it's become a more complex space. We're using the word food systems today and trying to have that dialogue and confronting its challenges in its whole entirety is quite difficult. But the one partnership I can highlight that is addressing both a procurement issue, because that's one of our core business competencies, as well as the nutrition dialogue at hand. Just a statistic to give you that we have steadily, from a WFP's perspective, the procurement aspect, we now carry half of our commodity purchases at the local level. We have a new strategy that is focusing on the local component of procurement, and now 1/3 of our overall local procurement processes consist of agricultural commodities being bought in the country where they were grown. So really, in essence, trying to inject the cash into local economies, strengthening the value chain and livelihoods of smallholder farmers, the more sustainable aspect of the food system when it comes to farmers, farmer organizations, processor groups, aggregators, traders, etc. So that is really a new avenue we are trying to really tap into. At the moment, I can highlight our partnership with the Rockefeller Foundation, and obviously the other side of the strategic equation is nutrition. So we have embarked on a partnership with them on an initiative called PP4N. It stands for Power of Procurement for Nutrition. And the program really aims at improving the diets of vulnerable individuals, populations, leveraging the institutional food procurement, and really, in essence, delivering healthier meals, ultimately building the markets for these nutrition and cost affordable foods. And at the moment, we have rolled this out in our Rwanda country office, implementing it in our school feeding programs, and we are going to hopefully further scope and assess and do further assessments in Burundi, and moving forward beyond that in the future. So I really think this is the sort of partnership that encompasses engagement with SMEs, and it's not just with Rockefeller Foundation. If we're to look at the value chain, we're tapping into traders and millers, producers, supply chain operators, as well as the host government. So they're all stakeholders that really we need to engage with to be effective and to find sustainable solutions. Over, Karnika.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Joseph. That's definitely, it's very interesting to see how WFP has been working with on the local purchase and buying most of the products being used locally, because that definitely gives the boost to the local manufacturers, local producers, local processors, and which results in the growth of the SME sector, SME agriculture sector. So thanks for that insight, Joseph. Omar, will you like to share something on the partnerships, the equal level system partnerships that you have developed or looking to develop, and what value add do you see in those?
Sure. So I think our kind of thinking is around the problems a lot of people identified here, and that is across a value chain when you think about nutritious foods, particularly horticulture. And we're talking in Ethiopia about onion, tomato, avocado, mango, and banana. There is from all the way from farming to the shelf, all kinds of structural issues called infrastructure, cold chain, irrigation, whatever it is. So we are predicating this on an investment in energy at the farming level. So at each of these sites, you're talking about maybe 600 kilowatts of power that's required. So that's anywhere from $600,000 to $1 million investment. So for the developer, if we want a private investor to come into this, they have to see that a lot of value chain elements are kind of covered and addressed. So I'll just go really quick through the different partnerships we put in place. So from the Veritas perspective, we have developed, if you will, the business case, and we're really leading the analytics and the stakeholder management. And if you will take the two things that we're doing the biggest, we're simplifying where there's complexity, especially between public, private, and development partners. We brought in the government between the Agriculture Transformation Agency in Ethiopia, Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Water and Energy. So they've taken what a leadership and permission role. Rockefeller Foundation has come in an incredibly supportive way to make sure that innovative financing is available at each step of the way, kind of a de-risking platform. We've been talking with 10, 12 private developers who are very interested in investing, but have some very tough questions. And they're really kind of leading us in the different directions and the partners in the different directions, because if the entire value chain side of this is not addressed, they're going to have problems across the way. We brought in academia. So we're working with Duke University's Energy Access Program and Haramaya University locally. So that's really about making sure the data is robust, that when we're talking about there's a scale-up opportunity here of 600 sites, that we have the right data, the data is correctly managed, whatnot. And also, very importantly, when you're dealing in this nexus of water, agriculture, and energy, to sustainability of water. I think a lot of us have read of what happened in the India context a decade or two ago. So they're really working with the Agriculture Transformation Agency here to make sure it's a sustainable use of irrigation water and that the rest of the community is getting a fair kind of access to it. And finally, when all these investments started to come into place, we got a call from the Gates Foundation. And now they have an abiding interest in the access to markets. So what does it look like to build that cold chain? What does it look like to take these horticulture products from up to 600 sites to local urban markets? What does it look like to take them to maybe Dubai or something like that? So I would say from a partnerships perspective, you start from the investment. You keep people completely aligned because they're all looking towards an investment, a point, call it a North Star that everybody has, and you corral everybody around that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Omar. And Thanks a lot, all the panelists. In the interest of time, we have one or two questions on the chat that I would like to ask a panelist. And that's the first question that I would like to pick up is actually relates very closely to what Omer just ended his discussion with us on the investment. And this question is I will pose to Neeraj. So Neeraj, how are commercial investors like Neeraj, Novastar, working with programs such as the ones launched by Rockefeller Foundations or the ones mentioned by WFP to ensure such programs are supporting enterprises that you will eventually invest in?
Yeah, so it's a great question. There are two aspects of this, right? One is, what do we do before we make the investment? And we absolutely work with partners to help find the great companies. We're based here, but we're a handful of people. We rely on our network to find the great companies, and that's typically accelerators, incubators, other investors, programs such as Rockefeller. Organizations such as Rockefeller with their various programs. So we talk to them on a regular basis, and frankly, that's just a large part of what we have to do. Otherwise, we lose out on great deal flow, great businesses. And there's then the second part, which is once we've invested in a company, we want to do everything we can to help them succeed. So, for example, if I procure to succeed, I need to make sure I'm thinking constantly about who can help them expand into the next country. To take one example. And there are so many organizations out there who are trying to take successful or reasonably successful initiatives from one country, apply it to another country, or apply it to another part of the same country. So we're constantly out there looking for those partnership opportunities, not on our behalf or on behalf of the portfolio companies, who by the way, the guys really make the change, right? It's not us.
Thank you. Thanks, Neeraj. Yeah, definitely there is a need because, as you said, and as Omar said, that the ultimate goal is to actually raise investment, but in addition to that is also to grow the business, to increase the revenues, and investment plays a very critical role for that. And then working with the businesses, along with the donors, along with the foundations from the very beginning itself, so that these businesses are groomed so that they are investment ready for the commercial investors once they reach that stage is very critical, and is the need of the markets in the region, in the East Africa, in the West Africa, and across the continent. I think some of the questions were already answered by the panelists in the chat. In terms of the closing remarks, maybe I will pass on to Azhar. And Azhar, as you give your closing remarks, one of the things that I will personally like to ask is that since you've been working in the cold chain space, is that there are a lot of multinational the food franchisees that have come into the region, and they still rely very, very heavily on the sourcing their products internationally. The bread comes from Egypt, the fries come from, again, maybe from the Egypt or from the other countries, and they are not locally sourced. So how can the cold chain solution assist in local sourcing of these products and the growth of the local agricultural sector?
I mean, it's a huge issue, Kanika, and I think it's right across, actually. You look at the amount of raw products that are being exported out of, the East Africa region, and those finished goods being imported back in at God knows how many times the price. And we definitely see the reason for a lot of that reason is because of the lack of infrastructure, because lack of cold chain, in this region. And that's something we've been shouting from the rooftops. There needs to be much more food manufacturing that's happening in country, and a lot more between the countries, actually, as well. I'm not just talking about the import and export. But I think a lot of this, because cold chain doesn't exist right now, what you're finding is a lot of this is happening by air freight, which is super expensive and has so many issues around environmental impacts. If East Africa had a proper cold chain infrastructure in place, a lot of that would move more towards sea transport, which would be a great thing for everybody here. But no, I think the key takeaways for us is, look, we have the capital. We've already committed. You know, we know what countries we're going into. We're going into 5 countries in East Africa. We're going to build a temperature controlled network around. We're going to do storage and logistics. And what it is, it's everybody that's in this forum helping to support that cold chain network. I know I've been talking a lot about cold chain because that's what we're heavily focused on. But the likes of Rockefeller and our VCs on the call and you know, other learned colleagues, there is no silver bullet for this, and I think it is a group effort. And we've already discussed a lot of ideas with Rockefeller. I'm glad to see the World Food Programme, Joseph, on the call as well. I know you've just landed in Nairobi. Some of us have been here for a few years, and I'm sure we want to talk to you a lot more about our ideas. But this is really a collective, you know, it's between all of us. And I think we're all going to have to put some effort with regards to cold chain and some of the other interesting things that I've learned on the call today.
You. Thanks a lot. Yeah, definitely there's a need to lot more collaboration and lot more development with everybody coming together for the common goal. We can definitely continue this discussion for long, but we have come to the end of this session, and I would like to thank all the esteemed panelists for their great insights and the learnings that they were able to share with us in this discussion. And I hope all the participants and all the panelists continue joining us for the remainder of the Sankalp Summit over the next 2 days, and enjoy the interesting discussions that we are having, network among each other, and develop the partnership, identify collaboration opportunities, and create impact at scale. Thank you, and thanks a lot. Have a good day.